good. Go again.
3, 2, 1, live.
Welcome back, everybody. You are listening to Movement for Life. My name is JR, and I am joined by Colby.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Yeah.
We are almost halfway through the year.
It's June gloom here in California.
Southern California. Nothing like it. Nothing like it. Sun comes out during the week and hides on weekends.
But it's supposed to get hot today, starting today, I believe, and it's
I hope so.
going to be really hot. So we'll be wishing for the June gloom in probably like 2 weeks.
And when we say really hot, it's like going to be like 80.
No, that's not true. It's been like 100 the last couple summers, like really hot.
Has it been?
Yeah. It's been like
Oh.
almost record high. At least in the valley where I'm at. I mean, I'm sure it's cooler out here where we're closer to the ocean, but in the valley where I'm at, it's so miserable.
Oxnard does bake a little bit, but the coast feels pretty great.
Yeah. Tell everybody where we're at in relation to Los Angeles.
We are northwest of Los Angeles. So we are in Oxnard, California, which is, if you were in the heart of LA, you would take the 405 north, and then you would exit west, or what would be north, on the 101, and you would head north on the 101.
West, but north.
Yes. 101
It's very
north,
confusing, guys.
but you would be going straight west. And you right off the 101 is where we are actually located. So the 101 is like, we can look at it right out the windows here. So you would get off at Rice Boulevard.
I can breathe all the nice exhaust coming from everybody's cars.
So that's where we are, and we're just south of Santa Barbara. So a lot of people are like, I have no idea where Ventura, Oxnard is. You know, if you were to go to Santa Barbara, we're about halfway, maybe a little bit more than halfway between LA and Santa Barbara. Yeah. Let's chat about some movement.
All right, we're going to talk about some of the things that we did last week. I'm going to let Colby go first today since I'm always the one that has to start. What did you do physical-wise this last 7 days?
Yeah, last 7 days. I did some CrossFit. I actually, in the last 7 days, signed up for 3 CrossFit competitions.
Okay.
Signed up for a persistence culture competition in end of June. Also signed up for painkiller competition in end of August. And then I had already signed up for a competition for Hawaii when I go out this coming week.
Right.
I also practiced some of the workouts from the Hawaii competition. I feel pretty decent about them. They're difficult. Well, some of them are not finishable, but difficult. Then I actually lifeguarded over the weekend as well, so I got to do some beach running.
Nice.
It wasn't particularly sunny or hot on the beaches, which means it wasn't super busy, which means I got to do a workout while I was watching the water. So sand running, it is sit-ups and push-ups on or near the tower. It's kind of fun. Changes it up a little bit. Running on the sand is way different than running on pavement.
It is.
You feel like you're running through sludge, which is, you're like, why am I holding a 11.5-minute mile? And I feel like I'm running my butt off and I'm barely making 11.5-minute mile. So that's what I did in the last week. It was pretty fun. It was great.
No pickleball?
No pickleball.
Oh,
That's
man.
not true. I did play pickleball with Kira.
Okay.
On Friday, we spent like 30 minutes playing some pickleball.
Is Friday your day for you guys to do something physical outside?
Like for the both of us?
Yeah, I mean, you guys went on a hike the previous Friday together.
You know, we talk about how do you make Friday is generally like a date for us, and how do you incorporate some sort of, you know, if our lifestyle is to be active and to be healthy, oftentimes our date entails us doing something with physical activity. Doesn't always, but yeah, kind of.
I was listening to another podcast on my way to work today, and they were talking about hiking and how good it is for the soul and how many really deep conversations can result from a hike. And they were pondering maybe it's because when you're walking, you're not looking at each other, you're kind of looking forward and you're able to open up a little bit more because you feel less vulnerable because you're not like staring in somebody's face, but how walking can just allow people to just kind of just release feelings. And I would think for partners, that would be probably a really nice opportunity for you to go out and talk about stuff and have like a little bit of like a honest time, or it could be an opportunity for you to kill your spouse and then leave their body.
Sometimes when we go on hikes, I'm like, no one would find you. Or me. No one would find me.
Why are we assuming that Kira cannot hold her own?
That's funny. All right, well, what did you do in the last week?
Let's see. Let's start. I have been really dialing in my nutrition, so it has allowed for me to really just up my training for the Masters Fitness Championship online qualifier, which I'm currently in right now. So I've been doing those qualifying workouts, and then just really making sure that I keep track of not only what I'm eating and how I'm resting, but how I'm recovering, and just been very on my journaling, making sure that I'm writing everything down and have a plan what I'm going to do every day, but as well as like my to-do lists every day, just making sure I'm keeping track of all that. But it's just been like working out in the gym. I've been trying to do a good mix of my strength training, which definitely can see that it's working. It's helping me out. I've been going on like some really just light, like 65% capacity runs. And then I've been at my pool like every other day. We're outside because the weather it's been like pretty warm. Like even though that we have this kind of overcast, like usually around like 3 o'clock or so, the sun comes out. So yesterday we were at the pool for a couple hours, and
nice.
I swam a couple laps and then just like cleaning the pool and just kind of being active. I also have like in our backyard, we have a guest house or a pool house, which one of our friends who is at my other CrossFit, he lives there. And then we have a pergola that's right in front of his place. And so underneath that, we have a bench and we have weights and we have like a TRX band and stuff. So I cleaned all that out. And then one day this week, I just went outside and let my dogs out, kept the doors open, the gate closed so they could just run in and out of the house. And I worked out outside, and it was really nice because you're out in the sun, and the pergola kind of keeps the sun from hitting you when you're lifting, but you can kind of go out and like I have some parallettes and a slam ball also. So it was a really nice opportunity to just kind of enjoy the weather and have fun with fitness versus like, okay, I'm doing this for training. Because even though we love doing it, sometimes we'll look at our programming for the day and like, this is just like, just kind of going through the motion because we need to do it, but just do stuff because you want to do it and have fun with it without any other expectation is sometimes like the best way to approach fitness.
That's funny. You talk about pool and you talk about like doing fitness stuff without intention. I went to the pool on Friday with Kira. We actually went to the hot tub, and there were some kids, 7th or 8th grade boys, and they were being rowdy in the pool, and then they came back into the hot tub. And we asked them, hey, is the pool warm now? And they're like, yeah, it's heated. And they're like, you should get in. And I'm like, I'll challenge you guys to a backflip contest.
Oh, no.
Like, oh. And so we spent like 15 minutes doing backflips into the pool.
From the edge?
From the edge of the water, yeah. Which was really fun.
I'm sure the lifeguards love that.
Yeah, no, yeah. Don't tell their parents. Their parents weren't there. But these kids were like, oh, I think I could do a backflip. I'm like, have you ever done one before? And he's like, I've watched people do them. And I'm like,
I would never do a backflip from the side of a pool, and I can do one on the ground. There's just something.
I did several from the side of the pool.
I would be terrified that my foot would slip and I'd hit my head on the concrete.
Yeah, it is seemingly extremely like you're like, well, this could end badly.
Yeah, it could, but it's fun.
Speaking of kids, though, today's episode, we're going to talk about what we think, or maybe what everyone thinks, is the best sport to put your kids in. And so we're going to kind of talk about a bunch of different sports, like why put kids in sports in general, a bunch of different sports that kids usually are in, and then what each of us thinks potentially is the best sport to put their kids in.
Yeah.
So the first thing that we should talk about is like, why should kids do sports at all? Like, is there any benefits to kids doing sports?
Yes. There's so many benefits.
So start us off. Give me some pros of kids doing sports.
Physical activity, like I think being able to just move in any capacity at the youngest age is always beneficial. When I'm coaching little kids in gymnastics, I feel like the biggest thing that they're getting out of just moving is finding out and learning new things that they can do with their body, whether it's like, being inverted or laying on their back and rolling over. I mean, from the time that they are babies, they're always learning physical things like how to prop themselves up, and then eventually how to sit up by themselves, and then how to, crawl on their knees. And then they start naturally learning to just stand up, pulling themselves up using the side of a couch or a table. So we're already like doing physical things, and it's just like a natural process without even being prompted. Like your parents aren't, for the most part, probably, hey, this is how you crawl. Can you do this? They just start doing it. So it's a natural progression to what we as humans should be doing, is moving. And then just like the challenge of learning new things is great for them. And it's not just a physical benefit, but like mentally, like they also like benefit from learning new things, because then it's going to carry over to learning new things, like when it comes to like education wise as well.
Nice. Yeah. But I think I didn't even think about that, but like, yeah, you're right. Motor development, like kids are like developing new neural pathways, and sports are a great way for kids to just continue motor development, like figuring out how their body works, what muscles do what, how to control their body. That's pretty cool. And then I think that you talk about some like mental benefits of learning, or cognitive benefits of learning in sports and stuff as well. I think there's also like a ton of social benefits of doing sports for kids too. Like the social awareness of being able to like intermingle with kids, like figuring out like things that I can say and can't say to other kids, building like teamwork inside kids, for their like, hey, I have to cooperate with 17 other people or 5 other people to come together for an objective. I think that there's also potentially like ways to potentially help with like depression and anxiety inside a team sport. Then also, I think that it's a great opportunity, maybe not so much anymore, but I think it still should be, is a great opportunity to like teach resilience. I think a lot of times, more recently, everybody gets prizes for everything. But I think one of the cool things about sports is like there's winners and losers. And then I think my idea about sports is like, you need to learn that it's okay to lose. Like, losing is not the end of the world. Like, the world moves on even if you lose. That means you get another opportunity to play, you get another opportunity to win, you get another opportunity to try again. And I think that's an important like life lesson to learn as well. Like, you don't always win in life. Like, and if you can learn that losing is okay, like you're going to be okay when you lose in life, and you're like, all right, I'm going to step back up to the plate again, or I'm going to go for that free throw again, even though I didn't make it last time.
That's such an important lesson to learn. And I actually saw a gymnastics coach who does a lot of training in the gym to work on mental resilience. And one of the posts that he posted last week was, parents need to allow their kids to fail. At this point, we see parents who are so afraid of letting their kids experience failure and disappointment that they try to do everything for them, and that it's doing them a disservice. And in fact, disappointment and failure is such an important, valuable lesson to be learned at an early age, because it teaches us that even though we do fail or we have disappointments, we can recover for them. And his point was that if you're not allowing your kid to experience these things as they grow older, and then they do for sure experience those, because they will, when they don't have you around anymore, they go off to college, or when they get older, they're not mentally and emotionally prepared for how to deal with disappointment and failure. And that could be maybe one of the reasons why, we have such a high prevalence of like mental illness or people dealing with depression at in the mid 20s and that demographic. And it's at such a high rate right now. But, it's really important. And I see it as I'm coaching gymnastics and little kids, that parents are so afraid to let their kids even fall. Like, this is the perfect place for them to fall. There's a right way to fall and a wrong way. And as coaches in the sport of gymnastics, we teach you how to do that, but let them tumble through. And guess what? Because they're going to fall, when they're running outside, they're going to, that's going to happen. So let them do it here where it's more of a safe space and we have some padding. But and I'm going to be honest, I've always been the kind of person who just let my kids, when I say kids, I mean my gymnasts, I let them have that experience. I would love to be able to jump in and do a skill for a kid who's really struggling mentally with something because either they're scared or they can't get it. But this is an important lesson for them. And I've always felt like as a parent, I would be, I'll like let my kids do their thing. I can sit back and watch. Though I find that even with my dogs, I'm so like sheltering of them. So I understand. I don't want to call out parents and say, hey, you can do it this way. I don't have kids, but I can even see how parents, that you just love your kids and you don't want them to get hurt. And even for my 2 dogs, I like, don't do that. Like, I gotta like allow them to kind of play, and they are fighting or wrestling or something, and they like fall into the table or fall off the bed or whatever. Like, it hurts me when I see them do that. So I totally understand why a parent would go down that path, but it's going to probably end up doing more harm than good.
Yeah, I think neither of us have kids of our own, so this is kind of a funny topic to talk about, but I'm sure that there's plenty of our listeners that are parents and that also experience this, and they can attest, like, I do have those feelings of like extreme attachment and love for my child, that I don't ever want to see them, fail, but I do see the value. And here's an experience, like if you're a parent and you've got an experience of like how failure has actually like helped your child, and you've got a fun experience to share it with us. We want to hear it.
Yeah, for sure.
So there's lots of different kinds of sports that kids are generally playing. We'll talk maybe through a couple of different ones that people generally put their kids in, and then we'll kind of move into like what do we think is potentially the best for some kids. So first, we'll talk about 5 of them. We've got soccer, we got basketball, we got swimming, we got martial arts, and we got gymnastics. Those are some pretty wide open sports that are pretty accessible to kids of a lot of age ranges for a very long time, with a low barrier to entry. So what are some benefits and drawbacks of each of these?
Well, I want to say that in this article, it lists those 5 sports that you just talked about. And I've always said, ironically, when I have kids, I want my kids to be in gymnastics. I want them to be in swimming, soccer. And then my 4th one that I would have put was dance, because I feel like all those things incorporate these building blocks of skills that will carry them on through life. Like soccer is great because there's a lot of running back and forth, and like there's like a payout for like a long-term commitment. Like it's not like tennis where you're volleying back and forth and there's like tons of action. You have to like move down the field, and it takes some time for maybe like a really exciting play to happen. So there's like, you have to like buy into like the commitment to, some of those those exciting plays that happen later on. It's not like instant gratification, right? But it
Yeah.
teaches like a longer term, like more like I feel like endurance sports or like
Mhm.
a marathon, right?
Yeah.
I think swimming is great because obviously it's a life-saving skill. And if you can't swim, like you're going to need to learn because climate control, hello, one of these days, we're all going to have to be able to swim out of something because of the way things are going. And then gymnastics, it's just like mastering body awareness, like your body through space and being able to pull yourself up and push yourself up is important because also when you fall down a well, you're going to be able to pull yourself out of that well or, like just moving your body. And
Yeah.
the reason I always said dance is because it's teaching your kid rhythm and like how to have a relationship with music, which like when they're in 8th grade and they can get out on the dance floor and bust a move, like they're going to be popular, right? So I feel like those sports, those things are such a great building block. And then you have basketball. It's like the hand-eye coordination. And like, I love the oppositional defense type relationship that you have in basketball where you're offense, defense, and you're having to quickly go from one to the next. So it's like quick thinking, like I need to be able to be defensive, but then I go on the offense like right away. And those are like that parlays into life skills that we need. Martial arts, that's defense. So like how could that not be benefit for you? I think that like, we see or have seen a big rise in jujitsu lately. And I feel like for a very long time, a lot of adults didn't do martial arts. Like you were even kind of like made fun of if you were an adult doing martial arts. Like, why are you doing karate? You're
Yeah.
not 9 years old. So I think jujitsu has been really good about bringing more adults into that form of discipline. And all of them, like, they have great individual benefits. There's in this list of things, we have individual sports where like if somebody's less of a team oriented person and they like to be more individualized, like gymnastics, unless you're like on a team with a lot of people, it's still an individual sport because when you go out there, you're doing it like for yourself and you're by yourself on a stage with everyone watching versus having 10 more teammates standing next to you or wearing a uniform that covers your face. But when you have like team sports like basketball or soccer, it's teaching like learning how to share and take turns with people and sharing the limelight. You can't always be the star. Like there's so many benefits to all of these things. What is from this list, what do you think is like your favorite?
Well, I don't know about my favorite. The one that I like have more thoughts about than really any of the others that kind of like sticks out is the martial arts one. And it's less about the more and more I thought about this as we were kind of preparing for today, martial arts sometimes feels like it isn't necessarily the physical component of martial arts, but it's the discipline. It's like the character building that happens in something like martial arts, where it's like you must respect your teacher, you must respect the other students, you must wait your turn, you have to have patience, you must have discipline, you must talk about like self-control, you must talk about respecting other people. Like you don't get to use this skill that you're learning to hurt people. This is a skill, like,
Right.
And it's an interesting. Not a lot of the other sports have that necessarily that focus. So like we did talk about like some teamwork and like sharing and things like that. But there's a lot. I think there's a lot more of the moving of bodies in those other ones where I feel like maybe martial arts is a little bit more focused on the character in addition to the moving, whereas the other ones are moving and then character as well.
Yeah.
Which is kind of that's an interesting thought to think about.
I mean, you're so right about the discipline that goes with martial arts. I went to college with a guy who was in Taekwondo and he was on national team. And when he was in high school, he lost control when somebody was picking on him and he severely injured somebody because he used his ability as defense and it was really bad. Like he got in a lot of trouble for it. And we failed to to sometimes realize that we are creating almost like a weapon. When you're in martial arts, like your body becomes a weapon. And, depending on how far you get, you can really do some damage to somebody if you don't have that control. And I love the fact that martial arts and gymnastics also, it's a very respect-based sport. And, I think that, with the other ones, any sport, you should be respecting the process and your coach, but those take it to a little bit more because the art of the existence comes, especially martial arts, comes from like more of like a master student relationship where, you're growing, like we've all seen Karate Kid. So we kind of understand that relationship that you have. Is it a dojo?
Sensei.
Thank you. What's a dojo?
I think that might be the location.
Space? Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think you're right. Okay.
But that's kind of fun. That's fun to think about. I found a really cool article on what are kids kind of like learning and developing at each of these ages. Before we kind of go into our own opinions of like, hey, this is what I think. You've already touched a little bit on what you think you would put your kids in, but I'll share mine. I'll let you kind of expound a little bit. But what's happening for kids between certain ages? And this is from a cheer and dance website, but like what are kids learning at certain different ages? So this is kind of talking about like motor development through ages. And ages 2 to 5. So these are some of the things that kids are learning: running, races, obstacle courses, jumping, skipping, hopping, dancing, tumbling and basic gymnastics, throwing and catching, swimming, playground equipment and climbing opportunities, riding a bike starting to ride a bike or a tricycle between ages 2 and 6. Between 6 and 10, this is where like attention span and coordination starts to improve, so you can follow directions significantly better, and team sports becomes like a viable thing to potentially put somebody in. And this is where a lot of team sports end up coming in: soccer, gymnastics, dance, tennis, baseball, softball, t-ball, martial arts, like skateboarding or rollerblading or ice skating for those colder places, and then swimming. And then children like around ages 10 and up, this is when kids are kind of ready to start doing like more complex type of sports, where there's like a lot more strategy or a lot more teamwork involved, and they're potentially a little bit better prepared for some sort of contact. So the first one on the list, it's 10 and up, wasn't on any of the other ones. Something like football, then basketball, volleyball, hockey, soccer, sports that emphasize skill and training, like golf and tennis as well. And then from like 10 up, that's where the branch starts to just get super, super wide on opportunities for kids to be able to do things. So I thought that was kind of a cool article talking about like, hey, what are some things that kids are developing at each of those ages, and what's appropriate, sport wise or activity wise for those kids during those ages.
Yes.
I know that you've worked with a lot of kids. Do you kind of agree with what's going on at each of those age ranges, or do you see anything else that's kind of unique at any of those age ranges as well?
I think that when you have specific sports and you've spent enough time in it, you can see like the outliers. Like you see some kids who come in with just a lot of talent, and at a much earlier age, they're doing things and they're able to process instructions and more complex movements earlier. As you were listing off those things, I was thinking that besides gymnastics, I can't think of any other sport where a child at a very young age is training that many hours so soon. So when we're thinking about soccer or maybe Little League football, baseball, what are their average practice times per week?
Maybe
2
twice.
hours?
and maybe
4
twice a
hours?
week.
Okay. You can have
Yeah.
like an 8-year-old in gymnastics who's coming 12, maybe even like 16,
Yeah.
20 hours if they're like at a gym where they're pushing too far, and that's not unheard of. And I can see how in my thinking that there'd be more kids in the population that I deal with doing things earlier because you're just training so much more than anybody else. And I don't think that's necessarily a good idea. I
Hmm.
think that if anything, in the last couple of years, we as a gymnastics population have realized that you can come and do more quality workouts and be in the gym less time and allow those kids to do other sports, because it's so
Mm.
important that they're more well-rounded. Like they should be playing baseball and soccer and whatever else they want to try to do if they want to do it, because later on when they are then asked to be in the gym even longer, 15 to 30 hours a week, how are they
Yeah.
going to be able to give up the opportunity to do other things if they've never done them in the first place? So let them do it now. But I don't know. Do you have another sport on this list, or even others that you can think of that as a 6, 8-year-old you're coming like over 10 hours a week practicing?
No, that's a really good point. Like as you were saying that, I was like, most of these other things, you're looking at once or twice a week practices, and then like a game on weekends during season. So like an hour to an hour and a half practice, and a game on a weekend for 8-week, 10-week, 12-week period.
Yeah.
Gymnastics, you're looking at, yeah, like you said, like, hey, you're gonna be here like 4 days a week, 5 days a week for an hour and a half, 2 hours,
No, it's 3 or 4 hours usually.
3 or 4 hours a
So
day.
can you imagine? I mean, unless you're an elite athlete, and we've all seen those, a day in the life of, or your favorite CrossFit athlete or whatever. And I was actually watching one yesterday, and I was thinking, as an adult, if we're comparing what like some 8-year-olds are doing in gymnastics where they're working out, let's say 12, 15 hours a week, are we working out that much as most
No.
adults? No.
Yeah, no.
Like the ones that are doing it are the high level. I would say that I'm probably around 12 to 14 hours a week of working out, because I usually, when I go in, it's a 2-hour commitment to me being there, and there's like rest time, and as in gymnastics, there's like some wasted time that we can make
Yeah.
those workouts more efficient. But for the most part, if you ask any of our members, any member at any gym, hey, you're going to work out 14 hours this week, like, you're insane. I will come to the gym for an hour, 5 days a week, and that's it. So that's, I think, where the sport needs to continue to look at what they're doing and make some changes, because it's just too much.
Yeah. I'll kind of give a little bit of reference then, or just like some personal experience, because I played sports, and what did I think about my sports experience, and how did that like reflect on how I ended up here. And my parents, they put me in a range of different sports when I was like pretty young, like under 10, and I played basketball, I played soccer, I played football, played baseball. I think I got a tennis racket. I was playing all sorts of sports. And then around 9 or 10, I ended up finding water polo. That was just another sport at first, until I was like, I really, really like this. Ended up getting a little bit better, going to more and more practices around that age. I remember that around that 9, 10 age, I went from switching between sports every season and only going to like an hour practice once or twice a week, to it was like, okay, after school, we're going to practice every day.
Right.
After school, we're going to practice. After school, we're going to practice. And it was a 2-hour practice for water polo. So that was like the start of like, hey, one sport that I was now practicing every day for 2 hours. And then I got even better. And they were like, okay, if you want to be even better at this sport, if you want potential to do really well, you need to start swimming as well. So then I joined a swim team where I was doing a 2-hour practice for water polo and a 2-hour practice for swimming. So I was now doing that 4-hour, but that was 2 different sports. It wasn't just one like gymnastics might be. But I mean, similarly in gymnastics, it's like you got beam, you got floor, you got rings, you got, uneven bars, you got parallel bars, like you got lots of different things that you're practicing. So like 4 hours, like, yep. And then as it progressed, I in high school, I was practicing 32 to 34 hours per week. That was the most I was ever practicing.
Yeah.
When I went to college and I played college water polo, the max that NCAA allows you to practice for sports is 20 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I immediately went from high school to college where I was like, I just got 10 more hours of my week back because I'm not practicing as much. I think one of the big things that a lot of those sports kind of helped me deal with was, one, it did help with staying physically active. I never dealt with any of that. In fact, it was extremely difficult for me to gain any sort of weight. Because working out 4 hours plus a day, it's hard to physically eat enough food. It gave me some social structure, some friends to be around, which turns out like I probably should have mixed it up a lot more, because when your only friends are in one area,
right,
when at some point that gets pulled from you, like it did in college, I got told, hey, this has been your life. You can no longer play this. You're no longer can be associated with these people. I was like, I don't know what to do. Those were all my friends. So I think that there's value in mixing something like that up, but it also kept me out of trouble as well. Like,
sure.
I think I'm probably a person who could have gotten into a lot of trouble. And because I was so busy with sports, I was too tired and focused on other things to get in trouble. Which was probably really good for me. I probably would have been somebody who would have gotten into trouble. And then moving past college, going to 20 hours a week, then getting pulled from those sports and just going to school. And I was like, man, I have an insane amount of time. What am I going to do with all this time? Ended up finding something like CrossFit. And with CrossFit, like, it was like 5 to 7 hours a week. And like, when you go hard like that, I was like, I don't have more to give. Like, I'm going hard. So my physical activity level dropped significantly the older and older I got. But I think that the physical activity, the sports, was less about keeping me fit and more about the other life lessons that it was potentially teaching me. So that's kind of my personal experience. I honestly think if I've got kids, yes, I want them to enjoy what they're going to do, but I feel like I'm going to be okay to a point having some kids do some things that they might not want to do every single day. With the knowledge that, hey, I know I didn't want to go to practice every day, but I'm so glad that I did at the end of the day. And so even if I'm like, I don't feel like going to practice today, and it's like, well, you're going to go. Like, oh, I hate this. And it's like, there's bigger reasons behind why we're going.
Sure.
And I need to be able to communicate that to my kids at some point as well.
Right.
Of like, hey, sometimes we don't feel like doing this, and that's okay. We got to look at the bigger picture, the longer experiences, in order to continue to make this happen.
Well, I mean,
but I think
that's go ahead.
Gymnastics would be the sport that hands down. Like from 2 to 8, 2 to 10. Like I think that's going to be that's the move for sure.
I think a lot of people will ask me when they come into that, the first level of gymnastics is called a parent taught class, and it's usually like 18 months to 3-year-olds, kind of depending on, like, some gyms will go to 2, others will go to 3, and they'll ask, like, what's really the benefit? Because I can have my kid like walk up a wall at home, and I can have my kid do very similar things. Well, yeah, you can, but the social aspect of it, what you're talking about, is the number one goal of those classes are usually it's the very first semi-structured class that these kids have ever been in. So they're in front of somebody who's like a teacher, me, the coach. The parents will come out with them, and the parents are still spotting them at stations. I'll teach them how to spot. So, the understanding that those younger kids are going to be more comfortable with their parents spotting them than me. But as they become more comfortable with me, the parent will move away and I will start spotting them. But it's all like learning to take turns. None of them know how to take turns. They don't want to wait in line. They're always cutting in front of each other. They're like, they don't want to share. Everything's mine, mine, mine. And every time a parent would come in with their kid, they'd be mortified at the end of class. Like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, no, like this is exactly how every single one of these kids acted their first couple days, because they're learning new things, especially if they're the only child. And then you see all these kids that came out of COVID who were at home with their parent every day. They had a lot more difficult time adjusting to that environment. But it's all about like their learning process, right? And that social aspect of like being around people that they're not used to is so valuable. And at the end of the day, is like, they're going to learn some physical activity, but they're also learning how to like act around other people that they normally wouldn't be around.
Yeah. That's a really good point. Do you have any anecdotal or experiences that you would like to share about sports?
I mean, as a kid, I started doing gymnastics at around 3 years old. And then I went to a private school at one point just so I could get out of school early to go to gymnastics. But in that private school, there were very few kids that went there. So we all had to play all the sports. So I played football and basketball, and we didn't have baseball. And I hated all of them. Like I would do it because we had a grade that was riding on that. So I was pretty good at like defense for basketball, but I couldn't shoot a basketball very well. And I still can't. I thought football was like just the most boring thing that I could ever play. I just didn't like it. I was in a summer league for a couple of years playing baseball, and I didn't like baseball. I also thought it was boring. But the opportunity to play those other things allowed me to, I think, like understand that gymnastics was a sport that I really wanted to do. And I wasn't bad at the other things necessarily besides shooting a basketball. I mean, I could, I'm, I think by nature, like a very active person. I learn things fairly easily. That doesn't mean I'm like amazing at them, but like I can kind of jump in and do anything like fairly well. And it wasn't until high school when I took a break from gymnastics that I got into doing cross country and track and tennis. And I really like fell in love with just other forms of movement. So like I always just tell people, I mean, we talk about it all the time, but when it comes to movement, there's going to be something out there that you're going to find that you really like to do. And regardless of whether you like to work out or not, there's something that is out there for you. Like you will like, maybe it's just hiking, maybe it's just like something, and maybe you don't want to do it 6 hours a week, maybe just 3 times a week, but you'll find that it's enjoyment. And so when, we're talking to parents and like, I don't know what to put my kid in, just keep putting them in things. Like if they show an interest in anything at all, even if you think it's stupid or like, like I'm a boy and I want to do dance, put your kid in dance, because like there are so many things that relate to dance and like martial arts or any other movement that we're doing that could be like a gateway to them going, oh, I'm going to try this. Or later on when they do something else because they decide they want to try it, like the dance training comes out. And for sure. I think that like so many parents are like, I only want them to play this sport or do this sport or whatever. Just like if your kid wants to try something, just do it. Just like let them do it.
Yeah, I honestly think that is the biggest takeaway. Like each of us have our thoughts on what we think our kids should do, but and both of our personal experiences, and at the end of the day, what you're exactly saying is like do have your kid do lots of different sports. Like that is what they're gonna enjoy most. It's gonna, maybe they're not gonna be the expert or the professional in any one sport, but for the majority of us, picking out a sport to play or it's going to take years and years. So try a season, mix it up, whatever, your child's finding interest in, be interested in them and figuring out, hey, like what do you want to do? What do you want to practice? What do you want to learn? And there's a little bit of guidance in that, because as a kid, you're like, I don't know what there is to learn. You're like, well, here's what you could learn. Oh, that sounds fun. Well, let's try it and let's see how you like it. I think that is that is the biggest takeaway for like, what should your kid do? Like, let's try lots of different things.
Was there any sport that you wish you would have been able to do as a kid? Like, you remember going, I want to do that, but it never presented an opportunity?
No, not as a kid. As an adult, I was like, I wish somebody taught me how to play tennis, because I suck at tennis.
Now you're stuck in pickleball hell.
No, I'm stuck at pickleball. That's right. I'm like, I wish somebody would have taught me how to do this, because that's so hard as an adult. But no, that not as a kid. There was no sports that I was like, please, can I do this? And my parents were like, no, you can't. I think that if I had wanted or showed interest in something, my parents would have said, okay, let's try it.
Yeah. I always wanted to play soccer, but I don't know if I've ever actually asked. I mean, I did everything else pretty much. And as an adult, I always wish, man, I wish I would have played soccer, because I think I would have been really good at it, because I just love running back and forth. I think I probably would have been good at it.
Yeah. You've definitely got a soccer build.
I don't know if we even had soccer in the area that I lived in. I'm not sure, but I do remember going, oh man, I wish I could play soccer, because I don't understand soccer rules at all.
That's how I feel about football rules. I'm like, what just happened? All right. Well, thank you so much for listening. This episode is kind of geared towards our parents out there, but it also could be geared towards those of you who are potentially married or want kids at some day. Like, this is great food for thought, for, hey, what are my kids going to do? Because it starts with you, for sure. It starts with you, but then also you want the best for your kids. So like, how do you choose what's going to be best for your kids and have an awesome human being grow up, contribute to society, do cool things. And I think choosing a sport and teaching them some things early has a massive role in how they end up going in their walk in the world. Don't forget to rate us, subscribe. We're on YouTube, we're on Spotify, we're on Amazon, we're on Apple, on all of the platforms. We'd love to hear from you. If you've got any ideas for episodes that have something to do with movement, we'd like to hear from you. Again, if you're a parent, give me some of experiences that you went through with your child that was a discipline type of experience of like, hey, we're going to do this, and this is why it's good for you, and it ended up in a good scenario. Both JR and I kind of mentioned both of those, but neither of us have kids, so let's hear it from you guys as well. JR, you got anything else?
No. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for next week. Here we go.
Emmanuel, that was so good. Go again.
3, 2, 1, time.